Today we will be making pie dough. As we do with all of our labs, we will begin by washing our hands. The ingredients we will need for this lab are flour, farine, shortening, recusement, salt, seal, and a bowl of ice water. Ice water. Eau glacée. So the first ingredient we will measure will be the flour. Farine. For this recipe, we need 1 1/4 cup of flour. When we measure flour, be sure to scoop it into the measuring cup. This will avoid packing the flour down, causing an inaccurate measure. Once the flour is heaping, take a knife or straight edge spatula and push off the excess. Repeat for the 1/4 cup. Next, you will measure the salt. Seal. This recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Since salt is granulated, we do not need to pack it for fear it being packed down. Add that to flour and mix. Now this bowl contains the flour and salt, farine and salt, and the next ingredient we need to measure is the shortening, recusement. For this recipe, we need 1/3 cup of shortening. Unlike the flour, we want for this to be packed down Once measured, you want to scrape all of the shortening, recoussement, into your dry mixture. Then, once the shortening is in the dry mixture, we will begin to coat it with our clean hands in the flour. You want to start rubbing the shortening between your fingers to break it into smaller pieces. With each small piece being covered by the flour. This technique is known as cutting in. Depending on the size of the fat molecules in the mixture will depend on whether or not you make a mealy or flaky pie dough. Flaky has larger chunks, while mealy has smaller ones. If you do not have shortening, you can replace it with butter. Butter produces a better flavor, while shortening produces a better texture. Once you have completely cut in your fat, the mixture should look akin to wet sand. At this point, we will begin to add our ice water, ou glaceau, 1 tablespoon at a time. Mixing with our hands as we go. The reason that we use ice water is because we want to keep the dough cold. If the dough gets too hot, the shortening will melt, and we want to save the shortening melting until it's in the oven, as when it melts, it produces steam, which creates the flakiness in the pie dough. Additionally, cold water helps to prevent the development of gluten, which we do not want to develop in our pie dough. As you mix in the water, the dough will begin to form a ball. You want to keep adding water until it forms one large ball. Just keep kneading it with your hands. Once it's formed a ball, you can remove it from the bowl. It should be a firm ball of dough. Now for best results, I recommend to wrap this dough and chill it before rolling it out. I like to just use plastic wrap for this. And then we put this in the fridge for an hour or so before rolling it out. This will grant the gluten time to relax and make the rolling process easy.